Hello and welcome to the video. This is a quick video on a new product from MenaceRC. This is their new COB driver V2. So it's a little driver board that you power and then power some very bright LEDs. Now they had a previous version of this and it is good to see MenaceRC bringing out new stuff. They tend to innovate and bring out some cool electronics. Now most of you will know that I am a huge fan of the MenaceRC antennas, so the pagoda and patch antennas are pretty much what I use on everything that doesn't come with a supplied antenna. But MenaceRC actually started out making little electronics like this. In fact, I think one of their first products was a PCB board. That was quite a few years ago now. But this is a really cool way to add some incredibly bright LEDs onto your model, be that quadcopter or fixed wing. Now the main board itself actually has mounting holes, 20mm mounting holes if you want to use those inside a quadcopter, or you can actually just snap that piece off. It is perforated if you want a smaller driver board for something like sitting inside a fixed wing or maybe even a flying wing. So as of the release, they've come out with 3 different COB LEDs. There's a white set, a red set and a blue set. I was hoping they'd also do green, but apparently checking with Greg, there are other colours coming, which is cool. So hopefully, who knows, purples and pinks will be in that as well. But I thought what I'd do is very quickly show you how this goes and go through a couple of little gotchas with this and go through some of the specs. So the COB LED driver comes in its own packet. It's about the same size as a flight controller designed for 20mm mounts. You will get a little bit of cable to wire up to the LEDs, although you're going to need more, to be honest, if you're going to put the LEDs out in the wings or maybe in the nose or at the rear of a plane. And again, you can see quite clearly here that little piece at the back that you can snap off if you don't want to use 20mm mounts to hide it away somewhere. The LEDs themselves comes in like this in strips of 4. Let me open up a white pack and we'll put a couple onto the COB driver to give you an idea of how bright these things are. They're actually all connected together, and the front you can see all the little LEDs lined up, and at the back you have the solid back, which is, I think, must be aluminium from the feel of it, but it's a metal back which also helps dissipate the heat. When it's powered on, it does get a little bit warm, but not so that you can't comfortably hold it in your hand. Now, one of the things you may have spotted on the board is that there are power connections for the LEDs on each side, and there's also a power connection for the power that goes into it. And there's one other line in the diagram as well called EN, or enable line. That is how you can actually control these things using a spare UART on a flight controller in something like Betaflight, and actually configure the UART to turn the LEDs on and off. Or the other way you can do it is to connect the EN line to the ground pin, and that will turn it off as well. Wiring it up is really easy and straightforward. All of the legend is on the back nice and clearly, and you have everything you need with the exception of a power connector to put the little kit together. So I pre-tinned everything and then cut some of the wire to length and then connected 2 white LEDs. Now, one of the things you do have to be a little bit careful of, if you look on the website and in the manual, is the voltage, depending on how many LEDs you attach, is a little bit different. Now this will support the kind of minimum of 2 LEDs, like I've got it here just for the demo, but it will support up to 8 LEDs, which if you've got a quadcopter means you can have an LED strip on the top and bottom of each arm, or if you have something like a plane, you potentially could have a green strip at the tip of one wing, a red strip at the tip of the other, maybe white lights at the front, something like that. So it gives you lots of flexibility. And how you connect the COB LEDs together is in series. So on the bench, all I did then was just connect these 2 LEDs, one to each side. Just double check the polarity. Again, the polarity is very easy to spot. It's actually on the COB LED, so it's hard to get round. Triple check you've got everything the right way, ground to ground, voltage to voltage, and then you can plug the battery of the right voltage in. Again, be careful of that, because the more LEDs you add, the more voltage input you do need to run everything. So in this example, I could run this from 2S with just these 2 LEDs connected, but if I added another pair of LEDs, say another red set in series, then with those 4 LEDs, I'd have to use a 3S pack. As you can see, the LEDs are incredibly bright. They are difficult to look at directly for any period of time. They're not as bright as strobes, but they are much brighter than little 5mm LEDs or something else that you may want to put on the model. But it's a nice, cute way to put LEDs onto something, and very bright LEDs that you're going to be able to see for a considerable distance. Now, the only other tip I'll give you, apart from the fact that watch out for the input voltage because it changes and you need more volts in the input as you add more LEDs, is that you just need to balance the colors on each side. So you need to make sure that each of these sides on each side of the driver has the same LEDs on. So if I want to add some blue LEDs, then need to add a blue LED here and here. It's not really recommended that you would put all the blue LEDs on one side and all the white LEDs on the other side, just because of the way that the driver works and the voltages that the LEDs need and the current they need to light up. It's actually slightly different for each of the colors, so balancing that and having a white and a blue one on this side and a white and a blue one on this side is the better way to do it. The driver will be happier. There's only one thing I'm a little bit sad about, and that is that the control for this board is not like the MenaceRC switch that I looked at a while back. The MenaceRC switch allows you to turn on and off things by a PWM signal from something else. So that's particularly handy if you're an RC boat or plane guy or something like that, and you want to be able to control something on the model as though you were just closing a circuit, flicking a physical switch. You can use one of those switches instead. Now, this doesn't use that same PWM technology, so you do have to either use this in conjunction with a MenaceRC switch if you want to turn these lights on and off using a PWM signal, or you can wire up that that enable pin on here onto a spare UART on a flight controller, and again, that is kind of in the manual, but it would have been personally, I would have really liked to have one that was controlled by a PWM output. That would have made it easy to control directly from something like a receiver if you don't have a flight controller in a fixed wing model, and it would have also meant for things like iNav and other flight control systems other than Betaflight, you could easily have used some kind of setup to give a high PWM value out of a servo output on a flight controller that would turn this on and off. Who knows, maybe we'll get in the distance. But for now, if you want to control this, then it's either the UART stuff with things like Betaflight, details in the manual, or if you want to turn it on and off, then you're going to have to kind of route. I would recommend just disconnecting the power wire, the red wire, and running that through a MenaceRC switch to do it. So, links below. This is just out. I'm going to potentially be playing with this and putting it inside a couple of wings, so you might see this stuff in other videos coming soon. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.